Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the program Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. And in the program today, EU ambassador says devaluation not a solution for Malawi. And also in the program, we speak to Finance Minister Sostin Gwengwe on the 6.8 billion US dollars grant that is coming from Bridging Foundation. What is it all about? That's inside Business Time. Hello and welcome. This is Business Time and my name is William Kumwembe. In our main story in the program today, the EU ambassador to Malawi says devaluing the local currency, the kwacha, is not a solution to the misalignment it has had in the recent past against peers on the foreign exchange market. This comes as the International Monetary Fund last week hinted for a possible devaluation of the local currency following a 25% devaluation in May this year. But what does this whole mean to the economy, as there is debate now from development partners on whether to or not to devalue the local currency again? Our journalist Justin Kweu reports.
The EU head of delegation said theoretically, devaluation is supposed to deal with the misalignment by encouraging exports, thereby bringing more foreign exchange, but practically it does not work for countries such as Malawi, which have very few to export. He added that, for example, the 25% devaluation effected on the local currency in May this year did not solve the problem because the misalignment is still there and it just increased inflationary pressures.
What we did see with the last devaluation that was chosen that was implemented, I think, in May, was that it did not solve the problem. It did increase the inflationary pressure, and it did increase the hardships of many Malawians. But I also said that Malawians should brace themselves. We are here to help, but it's clear that the structural deficit of the budget over the past 10 years is a sign that Malawi has been living beyond its means. And to correct this, it means less of everything to everybody. It's also therefore that we note with admiration, I would say, the relative budget cuts that have been implemented here with the review. We see that even in nominal term it has slightly increased, but in real terms and considering the inflationary pressures, it is a relatively dramatic decrease of budget. And with a few sectors which are crucial for Malawi's development, namely health, frontliners, education, and the anti-corruption fights being ring-fenced, I think it's a very wise decision.
In May this year, the Reserve Bank of Malawi devalued the local currency by 25%, a move which aimed at giving the kwacha its true value and align it with the then trends. The then trends were that while the official exchange rate showed that kwacha was trading at around 850 kwacha against the dollar, it was around 1,000 kwacha on the black market. Nevertheless, the EU ambassador said the regional bloc is impressed with how Malawi is dealing with corruption and abuse of funds, and EU is considering resuming direct budget support to the government.
So trying to fight very well, is it enough to try? Hardly. We need to have some real progress, and there has been progress since 2012, 2013. Is it enough? I'm not well placed to assess this. This is why we have this expert mission from Brussels, not to be confused with an IMF mission, because they will not come up with a huge declaration when they're leaving. They will take notes of everything they learned during their stay, and then they'll go back and they will analyze, they will present to the hierarchy, and then gradually we'll form an opinion. Those are sectors that have been agreed with Malawian government. Those are sectors that inscribe themselves in the Vision 2063. And those are sectors that will help also address many of the current problems or challenges that Malawi is facing. Finally, I have good news, because since this weekend we have a mission in Malawi to assess the eligibility for budget support modality to be applied in Malawi by the EU. You know, we had budget support in the past, but after Cascade EU abandoned it like many other countries. Now we consider that there has been substantial improvement on a number of fronts, and we would like to resume it, but before that we need to assess the eligibility of Malawi for this modality.
Commenting on the ambassador's stand about devaluation, economist from the Malawi University of Business and Applied Sciences, Bechan Chereni, agreed with him. Chereni said the solution for the country lies in a good manufacturing sector that should give Malawians alternatives to imports, while at the same time, the products are exported to generate more foreign exchange. Currently, there is a 40% misalignment between the Malawi kwacha and the United States of America dollar, as official rates show that the kwacha is trading at around 1,000 kwacha against the dollar, while it is around 1,400 kwacha on the black market.
Now, on Monday, the Malawi government and Bridging Foundation of Belgium signed a game-changing $6.8 billion, which is about 7 trillion kwacha, game-changing grant for implementation of 7 key infrastructure projects in the country. There are debates, as we're speaking, over the practicality of the move, as others say it's too good to believe. Now, we pose the question to one of the key leaders at Bridging Foundation to find out the rationale behind the support.
The primary motivation is what we call in Hebrew the tikkun olam. Tikkun olam in Hebrew means healing the world. It means it's a duty for every single Jew on earth, wherever there is poverty and hunger, every single Jew must contribute to eradicate that poverty and hunger. So the primary goal is tikkun olam, implementing tikkun olam. Our donors are really interested in supporting the resolution of the poverty and hunger wherever it is. Then the second goal is to have, let's say, economic point of view, to have Western companies. We primarily work with evidently local EPC subcontractors, evidently. However, we bring technologies, knowledge from the United States, from Israel, from EU, of course UK, as well as Canada, from the West, because we believe for many centuries now, Europeans are making a lot of research, Americans are making a lot of research, and Africa never benefits from this. If you see here in Malawi, you don't have that much American companies. Why? And you don't have that much European companies. You have a few Israeli companies. Therefore, the second aiming of the foundation is really to, let's say, bring those technologies, those resources in Africa to work hand in hand closely, because at the foundation we believe that the rising of Africa, economically speaking, must be done together with West, EU, USA, Israel. The condition is that we have to build an assets that is required from the government. It's mean we're not coming with an open agenda. We just come and we ask the local government, what do you have as infrastructure to build? And we're not building below $100 million the asset, because our partner, World Bank, IMF, International Monetary Funds, IFC, they're covering that areas. So where your country needs tremendously amount of money, that's where we're covering. So first condition is that it has to be a government project. 100% private we don't do. Secondly, it has to be a physical asset to be constructed. I have mentioned the 100 million, and of course we have to do it together with the local construction companies and Western companies, Israel, EU and US. I have mentioned already we have two concepts, the concept of source of funds and the concept of origin of funds. Two different definitions. Source of funds are donors. Donors are primarily Jews who are aiming to resolve the tikkun olam. And the origin of funds is Western Bank. We do not have offshore accounts. We follow the EU and USA anti-money laundering, combating financing of terrorism, and ultimate beneficial owner. So we have to respect all these conditions. Therefore, our funds are located only in Western Bank. Again, EU and US, no offshore.
Now, what is the government saying about the initiative? Sosten Gwengwe is finance minister and says Malawians should be upbeat that the funds would be trickling in and bringing the necessary difference for Malawi to attain its long-term development aspirations.
Honourable Minister, you have signed this grant, 6.8 billion. What does this mean?
Well, I would say that this, I think, is the breakthrough that we've all been longing for a long time, to be able to find finances for our major infrastructure projects which are not debt creating. So the fact that other people of goodwill through this foundation have committed to invest mostly in our universities, the Inkosi Amakosi Mberwa University, but also the hospital city in Chileka, the Kuhes one. At Mas, they have projects at Luana and Mzuni. All these mega projects, I think the fact that they are not creating any debt on our side, it's a real game changer as far as infrastructure development is concerned. But also, these are universities where knowledge is created, and we think we'll see an acceleration of us achieving the Malawi 2063 much quicker than we had anticipated.
The President has stressed that the money should be put to good use and warned that anyone who is going to do to the contrary is going to face it. What are you going to make sure, or to do to make sure that this is done as Minister of Finance?
So as the overall coordinating policy holder for all these kind of projects, we do make sure that the implementation is to the letter. You know that we'll be implementing this together with Bridging Foundation, and the accounts that they're going to be operating will be opened jointly with Bridging Foundation, and we hope that there will not be any other thing that would be contrary to what is laid down as procedure for implementing these projects. Parliamentary oversight, as we implement the projects, any government project, parliamentarians are free to be able to go and do. That's their job. They do that every time, and we know that Parliament, but also any other Malawian of goodwill will be able to see what is happening in these projects, whether it's the extensions at other universities or a brand new university in Nzimba or the brand new teaching hospital in Chileka. These are projects for Malawi, and they are not co-owned. Once the Bridging Foundation has built the infrastructure, there will be a period of time where some revenue will be coming out of those projects, and there will be an account where those resources will now be plowed back to smaller health centers, smaller schools, and everything else.
Remember, this is Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. And my name is William Kumwembe. Moving on with the program, Ilovo Sugar Malawi profit before tax for the year ended August 31st, 2022 has increased by 31% to 38.4 billion kwacha from 29.3 billion kwacha during the same time last year. This is according to a financial statement for the period under review, which was released by the sugar making company on Monday. Now, our journalist Justin Kweu caught up with Lekani Karandula, who is managing director for Ilovo Sugar Malawi, to look at the performance of the company this far and what the future holds.
Well, I think overall it has been a good journey, but with a few tough years along the way. I think when we listed in 1997, the share price was relatively stable, having listed at 2.25 tambara per share. Up until 2005 or so, movements were fairly small, but from that point we saw some rapid growth, fairly sustained good growth until around December 2014 or thereabouts, and then the share price went a little bit volatile up and down, and then a sustained downward swing until around sometime in 2020. But it has thankfully recovered very strongly since. So prior to 2020, the best we got to in the share price was 294 kwacha per share sometime in 2014, but it fell to as low as just over 80 kwacha per share when tough times hit. But and now it is trading at just above 500 kwacha per share. So for those that invested in 1997, alongside the dividends that they have received along the way, they've definitely made a hefty capital gain over time.
As you indicated, the company has traveled a long way. There were some years, about 3 to 4 years, whereby even shareholders were not getting dividends. But now things have turned out to be good. Shareholders are getting dividends. The company is doing well in terms of the market price. Tell us the secret to that.
So there was a period of, I think, around 4 years from 2015 to 2015, 16, 17, and 18, when dividends dried up. In that period, there were a number of factors that impacted performance. Worldwide, sugar prices fell significantly. And then this is also the period that well, not we, but the quotas for exports to Europe were essentially abolished, and it became competitive. The European market was now accessible by all sugar producers, regardless of where they were coming from. It wasn't some quotas reserved for African producers like ourselves, and that meant that the prices in those markets also fell. And then locally, we also saw around Malawi some increased production in the region, most notably in Zambia, and at some point also the coming up of a local competitor in Salima locally. And I think our business did not quickly and properly adjust to those dynamics of much more competition from the region and from within. And that led to the falling performance that you're alluding to. But we have since recalibrated, changed our strategy to be much more market focused, and reevaluated over time our cost base, and changed to become a much more efficient producer, and the results are coming through now. I don't think any company should be afraid of listing. Listing is a good way of raising capital, long-term capital rather than just a short-term capital. But even if you want short-term debt capital, you can also do it through the stock exchange. And when the amounts to be raised are substantial, then normally it will come out to be a lot cheaper than borrowing from the financial services sector. So it is quite viable to raise capital in this way, and more importantly, it also creates an avenue for more Malawians to participate in the economic performance of the businesses. So our participation, our being listed, has helped many Malawians grow with us and generate wealth in the process. And yes, it does create extra obligations, because you're now accountable to the general public. And if your results are not going in the right direction, as happened for us for those years when our dividends dried up, you get quite a lot of scrutiny. But that scrutiny is also good in itself, because it drives you to be really alert in the way you manage the business. You know that if anything goes wrong, you are accountable to many people, and there will be many people asking questions. Keeps you alert, and makes you work really hard and make sure that you're delivering for everybody.
Now, in other business news, internal auditors in the country have been urged to ensure efficiency and effectiveness in their service delivery to protect both the public purse and funds in the private sector. This was said during a recent training the Institute of Internal Auditors in Malawi hosted in Blantyre. Chief Executive Officer for the Institute is Albert Nambula.
The Institute of Internal Auditors Malawi organized a two-day enterprise risk management training, and we captioned it as a driver for organization success So it was held here at Crossroads Hotel in Blantyre. So the participants are coming from different sectors, both public and private. So we didn't have a specific sector, but we invited all sectors to come and attend this ERM training, as it is a very crucial and important training, as per the caption that I've just said, that it is really a driver for organizational success. We would have loved everybody to attend this type of training. So professionally, there are internal auditors working in various organizations, as well as risk management practitioners, and also others who are working in different departments of the organizations. As the Institute of Internal Auditors Malawi, we analyzed the environment that we are operating in, and you've seen that there are a lot of risks that are posing threats to organizations that can make the organizations not to achieve their set objectives or goals. So upon seeing this as a professional body that is mandated to oversee the issues of risk management, control, and internal auditing, we thought it wise that it was better if we would come together and then share knowledge on how we can assist organizations to thrive even in some this economic turbulence we are passing through. It is worrying to the Institute of Internal Auditors that you are noting that other professionals or practitioners are choosing to be unethical while conducting their various duties. As an institute, we always advocate to our practitioners to make sure that they remain ethical while conducting their duties. Just to add on that one, the Institute of Internal Auditors core value is to ensure that we remain professional as well as ethical. So it really worries us so much that even practitioners can be undertaking or be involved in unethical behaviors. So basically, as Institute of Internal Auditors, as internal auditors in general, we are supposed to be advisors, good advisors to various organizations. So if the organization we are to look to an advisor, they should look into someone who is morally standing and ethically good, so that they can take those advices. So even as a professional body, we want to ensure that we complement even government's efforts in whatever government is to develop, both a lot of developmental projects that the government is undertaking. It is our mandate to ensure that we complement the government to equip our internal leaders or practitioners with the knowledge and skills that they will need to make sure that the organization succeeds.
That interview also brings us to the end of today's edition of the program Business Time, a magazine program in which we bring you major business and economic news stories making headlines in the country. On behalf of the entire production team, my name is William Kumwembe. Always remember, if it doesn't make money, then it doesn't make sense. Stay safe and bye for now.